Oh no.
All right. Oh, here are my flashcards. Gotta show those. Sweet. Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story building. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open you up to the possibility that everything you know is wrong. This is a quote by Terence McKenna. For a number of years now, medical marijuana has been on the forefront of political and legislation discussion due to the extensive studies and trials having been done on the benefits and potential of marijuana. Many believe it should be 100% legalized across the US. Many states have already passed their own legislature legalizing medical use and distribution, while some have gone as far as legalizing its recreational use as well. Psilocybin, which is found in magic mushrooms, seems to be part of the next step of mental health treatment. Oregon is the first to have legalized the use of magic mushrooms in clinical trials under Measure 109. Studies are estimated to begin in January 2023, according to Christian Foden-Wenzel in his 2022 article discussing Measure 109 and its details. Could this be the next line of defense in regards to mental health crisis challenges over ingrained? Yeah, I picked this topic because I have firsthand experience dealing with mental illness and its effects on my life and those that I love. I believe magic mushrooms and psychedelics as a whole have a lot of potential in the realms of science, psychology, and sociology. So in conducting my research, I have to share my findings with you. We need to do something about our society's declining mental health and its rippling effects. Therefore, I propose we open up our horizons to the potentials of alternative medicines such as magic mushrooms for their natural benefits and capabilities. First, we must begin by discussing the issues so that we can understand the solution. According to Rossler in his 2016 study on stigma, there is no country, society, or culture where people with mental illness have the same societal value as those without mental illness. There are three types of stigma: public, institutional, and self-stigma. Oftentimes, the first two lead to an increased sense of self-stigma. This causes many individuals to delay or even avoid seeking treatment for any illnesses which can potentially continue developing, leading to a higher likelihood of harm being done to those in need or those surrounding them. The media often does a poor job of reducing stigma around mental health, creating characters many people might be predisposed to judging or associating negative behaviors or stigma to them. Oftentimes, schools claim to be supportive of those with mental illness, yet most schools are not provided near enough resources or staff capable of providing sufficient support to those in need. This isn't necessarily applicable to colleges or universities, but because of this disconnect, many children grow up not seeing the value in seeking help, which also leads to many to refuse disability accommodations when some could greatly benefit from them. Of course, life at home might also make it very hard for anyone to feel comfortable accepting the fact that they very well might need help. Now, having covered our first problem, we can move on to the next problem regarding psychedelics history. For thousands of years, mushrooms and other psychedelics have been used in ceremonial and medicinal purposes by indigenous groups all over the world. Psychedelics have even shaped the course of several established religions, influencing their beliefs and spiritual rituals. Shamans, for example, are ancient roles encompassing the responsibilities of doctors and priests of a community. Their task was, and still is, to use whatever psychedelic plant or compound available to them along with other external components such as drumming, chanting, to guide users into a dreamlike state, enter the spirit realm, and so on. In more contemporary times, the use of psychedelics in clinical settings were underway when an American banker found himself on the cover of a Life magazine entitled Great Adventures 3: The Discovery of Mushrooms That Cause Strange Visions in 1957. The banker, after stumbling upon an indigenous tribe using them in a ritual in Mexico, decided to take some home and mail a sample to the scientist that discovered LSD, Andrew Hoffman. After studying it, Hoffman found the psychoactive compound psilocybin in the mushrooms, which he then synthesized and distributed to clinicians to begin studying its potential in medicine. Despite all the positive findings at the time, studies were brought to a sudden halt mid the 1960s when legislation for the 1970 Controlled Substances Act began circulating. According to the DEA website, the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 placed drugs into 5 different schedules, with Schedule 1 being the most illegal due to having no medicinal benefits and having a high potential for abuse. Psychedelics, along with marijuana and notable other ones, were classified as such, and all studies over potential benefits came to a halt. I have forgotten to use the slides. That was the history. And now for the potential. Now with some understanding of what has led to this current debate, we can begin discussing the solution magic mushrooms can offer. According to Karen Gorel, in their 2021 article discussing all there is to know about magic mushrooms, they claim that psilocybin increases a person's sense of openness, empowering mental flexibility that when paired with therapy and the right life skills can allow people to jump outside their patterns and establish healthier ones. Psychedelic experience need integration in order to create a new narrative and a repertoire of life skills that can be created and revised. In 1950, Bush and Johnson, two prominent clinical psychologists, noted early on that psychedelics could serve as tools for shortening psychotherapy. This idea made up a big part of research to follow, which is what scientists today are trying to accomplish. In clinical studies, and well outside of them, therapy is expensive. This factor on its own causes many to be afraid of or inconsistent with their therapy and treatment. With psychedelics, you get right down to the source. Interestingly, psychedelics and conventional antidepressants, also known as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs for short, have similar effects on the brain. Both affect the 5-HT2A receptors, which are important serotonin receptors. Antidepressants are known for reducing stress, impulsivity, anxiety, and aggression by implementing emotional blunting, which suppresses the emotions and the underlying causes of them. They also heighten mental resilience. Long-term treatment is therefore necessary. But with psychedelics, you experience a vastly expanded use of your brain, firing basically all your neural paths at once. This results in a profound state of neuroplasticity. This allows for decreased rigidity in thoughts and increased connection to the environment, which facilitates emotional release. When paired with psychotherapy and active support, potent and lasting results are possible. The neuroplasticity allows you to escape and alter your rigid and trauma-influenced neural pathways so you can take control of them. This way, treatment is permanent in reforming yourself instead of permanent in constant and forever pills and therapy that becomes a stream of the same things. The mystical experience associated with psychedelics can also give meaning or provide meaningful change to an individual's life or sense of self. So why mushrooms? Magic mushrooms and psilocybin are both affordable and natural. The latter reasoning means it's more cost-effective and also easier to ensure its authenticity. Oregon plans to only use real and farmer-grown mushrooms instead of settling for pharmaceutically synthesized alternatives. This seems pretty important given the natural medicines of it all to begin with. There are thousands of people out there, maybe even some million, in a severe state of mental decline in a society incapable of completely abandoning the ingrained stigma associated with it. Those needing help don't feel comfortable seeking it out. Our first-line responders aren't well-equipped in dealing with mental health crises, and our institutions oftentimes can't differentiate between criminals and those struggling with severe mental illness. This falls into the hands of our government and legislation, but most importantly, on the dialogue circulating the society it embodies. The comfort in talking about not being completely okay. As seen in countless studies, documented and undocumented across generations, magic mushrooms can be the next step in the treatment of mental illness through the adoption of alternative medicine into common practice, revealing their natural medicinal benefits, capabilities, and potential. I want to leave you with an anomaly I find rather interesting. In places such as Canada, Spain, Belgium, New Zealand, the Netherlands, it's legal and common practice for people to choose self-euthanization. All it takes is an application and then for you to come before a board with your requests and then their approval or disapproval. Then you go on your way to abandoning the world you abhor and those in it which you wish to escape. Studies by Carhart Harns and Goodwin in 2017 show that 63% of those denied go on to commit suicide anyways. Why are we letting self-euthanization become a valid option before allowing ourselves the option to break out of these rigid thought processes? With psychedelics, we can have that final intervention, allowing the potential to completely alter the way people view and approach life, bringing new meaning to a fresh start because I believe mushrooms can offer that. Thank you.